Select a
Hello
journey.
and welcome back to part 2 of the Game Nexus arcade video, which is my Let's Play of Gauntlet Legends.
You are now entering the castle courtyard.
Now here's your little cutscene here. Now if you actually had noticed there was something a bit weird about that bit of footage in the beginning, was that I was actually level 51 as opposed to what you see level 30 here. What I originally had thought I was going to do with the gameplay video of this whole Let's Play is I was going to split it up for the 4 realms. But the problem is it turned out that wasn't going to work because when I actually tried to stop and start the footage, it made me miss about maybe 15-20 seconds of footage, which was the whole select the journey part. So I had to basically film it after I had beaten the whole game. So that's why you saw the kind of jump in level. But here we are back again as Green Archer, taking a look at the Castle Stronghold here. And I definitely have to say, it probably doesn't translate too good on this video, but this game, considering its age, 1998, is a very good-looking game, and I probably gushed about this in the other video, but the home versions just don't really hold a candle to this. So, as I have probably said multiple times on YouTube here, if you can play the arcade version, or of course if you have the arcade hardware or cabinet, I would highly recommend giving this game a play. But what you had seen there is I was shooting some arrows at the enemies, and I saw the wall blink, which told me there was a secret wall there. And as I had mentioned in the first part of this video, this was me trying to find old runestones, so I pretty much was exploring every area of the whole game here. So it was one of those good old leave no stone unturned type deal. And my original playthrough of Gauntlet Legends in the arcade on that cruise ship I had mentioned, I think we had gotten a few runestones, but not that many, so I kind of wanted to make this playthrough to complete so I could finally see the true ending. Which, considering this is 2015 and this game was made in 1998, it's kind of sad it took me that long to see the true ending, but nothing's better than finishing a game on the original hardware. And of course, as you can see here, here's the exit, but it would be kind of silly to go there because there's still a bit more of the level to explore. And that's one thing you'll notice with Gauntlet Legends and even Dark Legacy. There's a lot of times where you will find the exit, but you're either going to miss a runestone or even something else, like some more gold or some more power-ups. So, unless you're really in a rush...
Is now Pojo.
And of course, Pojo rears his ugly head like he did in the other video. Unfortunately, since I'm not crazy familiar with the layout of the game, there was no way of me knowing that the power up / power down, if you will, depending on how you look at it, for Pojo was there. And unfortunately, unless you can really see it, which it shows up as a little egg, I believe.
You need another player to use the bridge.
You'll never know that you're gonna get the little Pojo here. Although I can also tell you,
Pojo has gained a level.
and there's the Pojo has gained a level again. But one thing I can honestly tell you, it's not a very bad power up or power down, depending on how you look at it, because you get kind of like a fire to your breath, as you can see there. So it does make you do quite a bit of damage, but it does limit all the things you can do. And I know I'd mentioned it last time, but that's one thing I love about this game and even the original Gauntlet. But I'd say a bit more so here. I love the announcer guy. I think that just makes the game feel a bit more epic, in my opinion. And this is one of those games. It's great single player. It's even better for multiplayers as well. But I can say I can go on record in saying it's not like some of the more modern games, which, like if you look at anything like Call of Duty or any of those shooters, a lot of people will tell you that the single player is kind of just tacked on and the multiplayer is where it's at. But this is one of those games that it's great as a single player game, but it's even better, of course, when you play multiplayer. And whenever I had my keyring full, that's one thing that I would do very often, is I would find something to unlock and then go back and grab the key. But of course there are places in this playthrough where I will run out of keys, because there are some areas where there are very few of them. As you can always see at the end of the level, you'd have the option to purchase keys, but I never purchased keys. I always purchased strength, because the one thing the archer is actually lacking in is strength. So if you're playing as an archer, that's usually something you really should get a lot of, because you'll get an edge, if you will. And see, if I had a second player, I could have just used that bridge there, and I would have saved myself the trouble of I would have saved myself the trouble of having to go all the way around that way there. And that's one strategy that I always recommend to people. If you get the, like the monster troll here, always try to like back up if you can. Which unfortunately I was really unable to do there.
Phoenix familiar.
And that was one of the few things that I was actually trying to get in the actual door there, because I had seen the troll or golem, as you would call him, but I figured he wouldn't be too hard, but it'd be worth it to get the Phoenix familiar for at least a few shots here. And I always thought it was cool that you could do the melee as well as your normal arrow, throw axe, whatever character you have attacks. So it kind of helps when you're in close quarters. And unfortunately, unless you miss a runestone, like you had seen in my earlier playthroughs, there's no way to know if you're like close to runestone or if you're gonna find one in the level. So unless you want to do what I'm doing here and kind of go all around the level, or unless you have an FAQ, you kind of have to go all around the level. But unfortunately, most of the FAQs I actually had found for Gauntlet Legends or even strategy guides were the console versions, and those runestone positions are actually completely wrong for this game.
Such bravery.
Yeah, he usually says like a couple things. I know one of them is that was an heroic effort, and the other one is, of course, I had not seen such bravery.
Space Station number 5. Grab gold before time runs out.
And when I had heard him say that, it made me think of Space Channel number 5. This one, of course, isn't as reminiscent as the first bonus stage of the original Gauntlet. And this is pretty much one of those things that if you want to get as much gold as possible, if you miss one or two here, you kind of have to just keep going.
4, 3, 2, 1,
and actually, I believe I had made a full lap around the stage there. But yeah, you could get a lot of gold in those bonus stages, so make sure you try to get as much as you can. And then I probably mentioned it last time, but just like it, for some reason those bonus stages, since it takes you so much out of what you were actually doing, it makes me think of the special stages in Sonic the Hedgehog 2. How you'd be in this like crazy place, and then all of a sudden you'd be back to like business as usual, if you will. So it more or less takes you out of the experience and then puts you right back into it. Whereas I've played some games where like a special stage, like in the original Sonic the Hedgehog, would be after the actual stage and wouldn't actually just pull you out of the stage, if you will. And at this point I figured, I've gone all around the stage and have not found any runestones, so there must not be one here.
Buy power-ups.
And as I'd mentioned earlier, what I usually would do here is just buy strength, because that's something that, as I said, the archer really lacks.
You are now entering the Dungeon of Torment.
And that's one thing I like to mention about this game, which I'm sure I'll mention multiple times after this, is I just love how these stages are designed. And I remember playing this one, I was thinking to myself, I could see that runestone in that cage right in the front of the screen there. I just kind of had to figure out how to get it. I was figuring like there was a secret wall that would actually have a switch. So if you see me hitting the wall a lot of times in this level, you'll know that's what I was actually after. So it's not that I'm bad at aiming at enemies, it's just that I'm not knowing where to access the runestones. And I definitely have to say that this game has some great music, like you can hear in the background here. So it really kind of sets that mood that you're in this like crazy dungeon stronghold, and it's playing this like dramatic music.
Green Archer needs food.
And a lot of times he will actually catch you in saying that you need food before you die. But unfortunately, there actually were a few times where he didn't say that, and I actually had died, unfortunately. But, you know, you could always insert a couple coins. You get 2 chances to do that, so if the counter counts down once, then you can do it. But if it counts down the second time, you have to continue and start from the beginning of a realm. Which isn't really that bad if you die in the first level, but it's pretty bad if you were to die, like, say, at the boss. Because then you'd have to go through the whole realm all over again. But as I had mentioned, if you had previously missed some of those runestones, you could go back and get them then. And this is that same strategy where you really want to get as far away from this guy as possible. And of course these other enemies attacking me didn't really help all that much, because they subtract from my ability to actually hit him. It's just like in a lot of the main reviews that I had done where I was fighting a boss and I had actually said,
I've not seen such
I really wish that like the boss would be fought on his own and it wouldn't be all the enemies joining in. That's kind of what I had there, where it was that really big enemy who can really take your life away quickly, but then all the other enemies started invading the scene or jumping into the fight, if you will. And if you're wondering why I had walked around like that, I just noticed that the runestone was over there.
4 runestones have been found.
And of course, that's 4 runestones, including the 3 from the Mountain Kingdom. It looks like I had gotten the 3-way shot and the ricochet shot, which is actually pretty cool. And the good thing about finding the runestone is now you know all you really have to do is find the exit. And of course, try not to get hit by all the hazards and everything from the spikes that come out of the ground, so like the fire that shoots out of the ground. And of course those things that are like saw blades that come from the sides.
Follow arrows.
And some levels like this one have the tentacles that come out of the grate. And I always attribute the 3-way shot kind of like the spread shot contra. It really helps a lot when you're dealing with a lot of enemies. And it just has that extra bit of oomph to it that you can take them out a lot faster. it doesn't really help on bosses, as it will, usually, most of the bosses will spread out. Maybe 2 of the shots will hit them, but not too often will all 3 hit the boss. And I just love that sound. It sounds like a bullet ricocheting off of the wall that it makes. I don't know if it had been seen in my Mountain Kingdom playthrough, but all those hazards on the floor can be negated by limited. I think it's limited levitation. That's what it is, where you float above the ground a little bit. I don't know if it does anything for the tentacles coming out of the grate there, but for like the saw blades and everything, it makes you basically invulnerable to them, so you don't get hurt if you walk over them while they're attacking you, if you will. So like if I had that power up for those last couple shots there, I wouldn't have been hurt at all, because that would have actually saved me. And that's one thing that always annoyed me in this game, because you can, if you keep attacking certain enemies that take multiple shots...
Shoot red barrels from a distance.
If you keep attacking enemies that take multiple shots, and they're coming out of a generator, you will actually keep fighting them. There's going to be no end to it, because by the time you kill the one that just generated, another one pops out. So you kind of have to, like, walk away from the enemy and start attacking the generator.
You are now entering the Power Armory.
And of course, here is our special enemy for this realm. It's the all the different kinds of knights. The one thing that I was kind of sad about, since it had to have like an orc there, I was thinking to myself, couldn't they have made a knight lobber? Like have like some knight guy throwing bombs at you? But unfortunately, I guess they didn't think of the same thing. There's a lot of stages, like even in the forest realm, I think the same thing happens where instead of having one of those weird swamp guys, it's just a orc throwing bombs. Which, as I forget which manual it was one of the manuals for one of the Gauntlet, Dark Legacy or Legends games, but they called them lobbers because they throw bombs at you. And you get that nice clangy sound when you attack any of the knights, which I like a lot. And that's one thing I had noticed in Gauntlet Dark Legacy, which I know I'd mentioned in that video, but it seemed like these guys were easier to defeat by a long shot.
Green Archer has gained a level. I've not seen such bravery. 5 runestones.
I think if I recall correctly, when I actually did this playthrough, I did find an FAQ as to where the runestones were, but the biggest problem is it was kind of one of those, the only way to really get the runestone locations was to actually play through the whole FAQ in its given order. But the whole thing is I want to really try to play a game while recording it, while looking at an FAQ, because you more or less would constantly see me, like, stop, read the FAQ, and then start moving again, so that kind of would have made the playthrough look kind of weird. And that's another one of those you need a second player switches, because one player has to stand on the switch while the other player gets across type deal. And those are the enemies that I definitely say I hate the most. The archers aren't bad. And as I was mentioning earlier, there's your limited levitation, which you get the little wings. So if you get any of those hazards that are on the ground, you won't get hurt by them now. But as I was mentioning, the lobbers have to be one of the most annoying enemies in my opinion, because they throw the bombs, and they actually damage you a lot more than, say, like an arrow. An arrow damages you a little, but a lobber's bomb seems to take out enough health for just like being something being thrown off screen. And that was your audio cue that your levitation has run out. And I'm thinking there that I hadn't noticed that the levitation had worn out since I was getting hit by the hazard a lot there. Unfortunately, the announcer doesn't always say BFG, but he catches enough of them. But on occasion, just like that one, you get a BFG where he doesn't say anything at all. But it seems like he always catches him with his, I've not seen such bravery, or that was an heroic effort, just about all the time. I don't recall really any time where I had fought one of those guys where he didn't say that. And I know later on in the game, my little butterfly familiar here actually gets upgraded, so I think it turns into like similar to the Phoenix familiar, but there are a few other like upgrades that I get along the way, like character gets permanent growth was one of them, and then there was I know the final one, which is 1250, which is the highest I get in the 12 Legends here, was upgraded weapon, which makes your weapon attack harder. And it gets like a bit of gilding on it, like there's extra pieces on the bow and it looks a bit bigger for the archer here. And just like the original game, as you can see, a lot of these stages really are mazes, so sometimes finding your way through, especially with like the two-player things you have to step on, it makes it a little bit harder because you can't use that shortcut, and you have to actually go all the way through the level. The funny thing is, one of the FAQs I had read said in the Forest Realm there actually was a runestone that you could not get without two players, but as you'll see in the next part of this video, which I'll try to release a little bit quicker than I did this one, the FAQ was completely false, and two players were not needed at all. I think that was in the last level of the forest area that it said you needed 2 players. I can remember when I first played the Treasury, I thought there was going to be like a lot of gold here, kind of like one of those bonus stages, but there was not. I thought it would have been a really cool thing if they had done something like that, like there was an extra bonus stage with a lot of gold. And whenever I see one of those red barrels, I try to shoot as much as I possibly can, even the green barrels, like this one over here, because the problem with the green barrels as opposed to the red barrels is the red barrels explode, okay, it's over. The green barrels, they kind of explode and leave their mist behind, so you kind of have to wait until the area loses its explosive mist. And that was another one of those like chance things where I noticed a secret wall, but in this case, it was kind of a shortcut the other way, so it didn't really give me much of an advantage at all. And that made me learn that. And that made me learn that going through that door was just a waste of a key. Unfortunately, the Thunder Hammer is kind of like Super Shot, where you only get a few shots.
I've not seen such bravery.
So I only got, I think, like 3 shots from Super Shot. But yeah, I mean from Thunder Hammer. But yeah, it's another one of those power-ups where it's very powerful, but you just don't get all that much of it, if you will. So it's one of those things that you wish you'd get at the end of the level, so you could use it on the boss, but it never seems to work out that way, unfortunately. I think a few times, I don't know if it was in the last video, but I got super shot right before the dragon, and I was able to use it on him, which was actually pretty cool. And that was one of those occasions where you got the kamikaze guy, and I really couldn't get out of his way, so I kind of hid behind the throne there, so he wouldn't get me. If I recall correctly, this was another stage that kind of had a spotty account of where the tombstone was. And if I recall correctly, that was one of those times where I took the poison food, and it wasn't like until I was actually like taking it that I realized it was poison food and it wasn't something good I should have taken. And that's one thing you gotta really be careful about this game, is not to get surrounded, because it so easily happens when you have so many enemies on screen at once. And that's one thing I've noticed over the console versions. It seems like, at least in some stages, the enemy feel is a lot better. Of course, in a lot of the console versions, they will have very simplified enemies because they can't display that much, say, with the Nintendo 64 or PlayStation chip on the screen at once without simplifying them a little bit. One of these days, I'll probably do a side-by-side comparison between this and various console versions to show you what they look like, because I believe what you're seeing here is the highest I'm going to be able to capture this video.
I've not seen such bravery. Late amulet.
And that's one thing I definitely have to say.
Needs food.
There are so many power-ups in this game, I was actually kind of surprised that there really were all that many of them. And now, as I said, the runestone location was really spotty in the FAQ because it said in the throne room, which I didn't figure was in the middle of this thing with a red carpet. That chair I saw earlier, I was figuring was the throne, therefore that was the throne room, but it turned out that was not true at all. So it kind of took me a little to figure out where it was, but once I saw that, I kind of figured, oh, that's that central location, so that's what he meant by the throne room. As I'd mentioned that I not had the following the FAQs, so I did not know where the actual runestone was. And if I recall correctly, that was kind of one of those, oh, there's the exit, I got the runestone, so I don't have to worry about it, so I went back through the teleporter and just got out of there. And so on to the boss of this stage.
Power-ups.
And then here's me buying a little bit more strain.
You are now entering the Chimera's Keep.
One thing I thought was actually a cool addition in Gauntlet Dark Legacy was the ability to get additional weapons that would take a bit of the health of the boss out. Like, for instance, it would throw an axe or a giant scimitar at the boss, which would end up hurting maybe a quarter or a third of the boss's health, which in the case of the Chimera here, it would kill one of the heads automatically, which is actually really cool, because they all kind of shoot a different thing. The other consolation is they don't all kind of do rapid fire at the same time, or that'd make this boss more or less impossible. And now a good strategy for this boss battle is kind of try to focus on one head at a time. If you hit the body, which can only be done when you're really close, you will damage all the heads, but as I said, you have to be really close, and if you see when you're really close with some of the heads, they will shoot their brand of fire. Like the snake head shoots like the acid breath type stuff, the bird head shoots lightning, and the lion head shoots fire, of course. And what would be cool is if you were playing this in multiplayer is you could have like one player dedicated to each of the heads. And that's the only drawback with multiplayer that I could think of. When you're playing like a boss stage like this, it has more of a zoomed out camera angle because it has to show all the players on the screen at once. So in lieu of split screen, which became popular with later console games and first-person shooters, you just kind of all had to occupy the same screen at the same time, so it was kind of a bit of a deal here. Not a deal breaker, of course, but it kind of was hard to be able to see all the characters and the boss, so it had to zoom out a bit. But the cool part is it had the initials, or I believe the console versions may have had the player. No, it was just the initials or the name of the character, because you didn't have to have the number of the player, because the player number is by your color. And if you see here, just like with the last stages of the dragon, you're getting a lot more shots than you would have, while the Chimera gets a bit weaker. So you gotta be careful. Just not any of the bosses. They'll kind of start out with that I throw this attack occasionally type thing with, now I'm going to start throwing it alive. I know, especially when you defeat one or multiple heads, you'll see a lot more enemy fire. And if you can get the pattern down, it kind of seems like you can have just, say, one head attacking you at one given time. So, like, if you're in front of the lion's head when it's time to shoot, it'll be the lion head that shoots. If you're in front of the bird's head, it'll be the bird's head that shoots. And sometimes it seems like when it does the multiple heads at once, and that's one thing I could always remember when playing this in the arcade, thinking that didn't come back quick enough, was your turbo meter, so you could do your enhanced attacks.
Needs food.
And you see the lion head actually just died right then. And the funny part is I did some gameplay of this for Dark Legacy, which I believe I still have on one of my computers somewhere, but I've never uploaded. And as I'd mentioned earlier, the announcer guide does not always catch when you're dying. So there was actually a legitimate time where I died in the Chimera battle here, and it was not because I was bad at it, but because the announcer never said Green Archer is low on health or Green Archer needs food badly, so I just legitimately died without noticing. Plus, it didn't help that when I was recording Dark Legacy, the player 4 got a little cut off on that side. And you'll see now that it's kind of the end, they're kind of doing their double team a bit more than they're doing earlier. And that's the end of the Chimera and the Castle Stronghold area. Now you get to hear him praise you.
You have defeated the fearsome Chimera and recovered his key. You have found all 3 runestones from this realm. Continue now on your quest to recover all 4 keys that unlock the Altar of Scorn.
And that's one thing I will definitely say about this game. Unless you have multiple players, you really should level up like I have here. That's the Castle Stronghold, and I will see you in my next video. Later. Bye.